And the question is this realistic? Well, let's before I talk about where Jesus is buried, let's talk about the Temple Mount. Okay, so before Jesus shows up the second time, okay, the second coming of Christ, the temple has to be built. So the temple is not built right now, so therefore, most likely Jesus is not coming again now. But I'm going to just go over a couple of things about the temple. Okay, so does anyone know who built the first temple? Okay, so I'll just go around and see if you guys guess. So, Henry, do you know who built the first temple? Okay. And Brandon, do you know who built the first temple?
Hebrews?
What?
Hebrews?
What did you say?
He said Hebrews.
No, I meant there's a person that built it. Of course, the Hebrews, the Jews built it. I'll ask Andrea. Andrea, do you remember who built? Yes, she said King Solomon.
Yeah.
Okay, King Solomon built it. Okay, so what happened was this. There was the Ark of the Covenant, and when Moses was traveling 40 years into the wilderness, you couldn't build a temple, but you still had to worship God. You still had to have sacrifices. So therefore, the temple had to be always moving, temporary, mobile. So therefore, they set up tents, and then within one certain area of the tent was that was the special area where the Ark of the Covenant was. If you went inside, you would have got killed. And King David, oh yeah, it doesn't broadcast.
No, it's working.
That's okay. So God says one day when we are a nation, when we finally stop, when we get the promised land, we can actually stop and build the temple of God. Okay, and one reason it's in the Jerusalem area is because this is where Isaac, Abraham had to offer his son Isaac to be killed. So God says, okay, now that you have a king, and his name is King David, we can build the temple. So does anyone remember why God would not allow King David to build the temple? Okay, so we just have you guess. So Thomas, that's your father's name. Okay, James. Yeah, I might as well call you by your dad's name. James, do you remember why David was not allowed to build the temple? Okay, so this is a really deep thought. David was a man of war, okay? And in God's eyes, the man of war cannot build the temple. Which is kind of cool, right? So he says, okay, your son, though, is not a man of war, a man of wisdom. So Solomon, you can build the temple. So, I may not even get to the cemetery thing. So Solomon builds the temple, and he puts in the best gold, the best ornaments, everything. Okay, a very, very good temple. And then Israel sinned. Okay, Israel started worshiping other gods. And does anyone? I'm going to ask Angelina. What was the punishment for Israel for worshiping other gods? What?
They were banished.
They were banned. They were taken as slaves again. So before they were slaves to Egyptians, and then now they're supposed to worship God. Now they're worshiping Baal, and God says, "That's it. Your punishment is you're going to be slaves again." And they were slaves, and the temple was destroyed. Okay. Then the temple. Then the children of Israel were slaves, and then they cried out, God, please deliver us. We won't worship idols anymore. Then God says, okay, I'll bring you back. So they bring him back. And if you look at the books of the Bible, okay, so let's have you turn to the books of the Bible. And then those of you with the Bible can actually see it. Those of you with the phone, you cannot see it. So the books of the Bible, many of the minor prophets in the books of the Bible talk about one day we will rebuild the temple. Okay, so if you look at it, Jeremiah would say, yes, one day the temple will be rebuilt. In fact, Jeremiah writes down, Ezekiel writes down, one day Israel will come back. Okay, nobody believes it. Okay, he's writing this while they're slaves. He says one day Israel will come back, and Zechariah will say yes, and the temple will be rebuilt, and the King Jesus will visit this temple. And Haggai will talk about the building of the temple, and so there's a lot about building the temple again. And these guys are predicting, you know, you got to remember, they're writing about the building of the temple, you know, even before the temple was built. So the temple is now built. So let me just mention a couple of things. So we know that the last prophet was Malachi in the year 400 before Christ. Now God is in a hurry now. He has to rebuild the temple. Why? Because Jesus is about to come. So when Jesus is about to come, you got to rebuild the temple. So who actually decides to rebuild the temple? So I'm going to have you turn to a book you never turned to, Haggai. Okay. So I'm going to. Does anyone here, even Andrea doesn't know the answer, which is fine because I didn't know the answer. Andrea, do you know who built the second temple? So we will find out in the book of Haggai who built the second temple. So, you know, every year I try to come up with one new memory verse a year. Okay. And this year I actually have two new memory verses. And it's like, Nathan, at your age, how can you come up with a new memory verse every year and keep up with it? You know. So what? You know, God has given us a brain, memorize stuff. So let's look at Haggai chapter 2. Okay. And I just want to say this. Haggai's a prophet, and now it's time for Haggai to get this temple built. And let's see who's supposed to build it. Okay. So Haggai chapter 2, in the 7th month, in the 21st day of the month, came the word of the Lord by the prophet Haggai, saying, speak unto Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah. So when he says governor, it means king. Okay, just like so what's the difference between a governor and a king? So I'm going to have you guys think about it. Betty, do you know the difference between a governor and a king? So who's more powerful in India? Some King Raj, whatever, or the governor of India under the British rule? Okay. Yeah, usually governors are strong. Governors are underneath some empire. So during, if I'm correct, when Jesus was there, you had King Herod and you had Pilate. Okay, Pilate was the governor. He was more powerful than King Herod. So in our mind, it's like it has to be king. This time, very powerful person. Speak unto Zerubbabel, the governor. Why don't we just call him the King of Judah? King of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josh-Edesh, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, okay, and then let's take a look at that biggie verse that I had memorized. For some reason, I can't remember where it is. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I like this verse. It has nothing to do with building, but the verse is number 7. I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with the glory and the Lord of hosts. Okay. So I guess it doesn't say this directly because I didn't write it down, but the next one that builds the new temple, his name is King Zerubbabel. Okay? And I'm going to just do a play of words. Once I say this, you will never forget the name of the king. Okay? So the name Zerubbabel has the word rubble in it. Okay, so they had to take rubble and build the temple. Okay, so if you can remember, it's Zerubbabel. And I'm going to just ask you guys to really think about it. The first person that built, Brendan, can you turn off the heater? It's hot now. The first person that built the temple, what was his title? Okay, so Maggie, do you remember the title of the first person that built the first temple? It's what? Who built the first temple?
King Solomon.
King Solomon. What was his title? He was king. Okay, so in theory, who is the only person that can build a temple? It has to be a king. Okay, so the next question is, Zerubbabel is a governor. Is Zerubbabel a king? Okay, and I'm going to just fast forward this because I know I have only 4 minutes, and I don't have time to prove to you guys that Zerubbabel is a king. Okay, so after Zerubbabel builds this temple, it's a simple temple. It's not very elaborate like King Solomon. And the people during the day of Haggai would say, this is not as good as the King Solomon temple. Why don't we make it as good as King Solomon? And there's several reasons. First of all, they don't have the money. They're slaves, right? King Solomon had all the money in the world. So basically, Zerubbabel was in a hurry. He doesn't know that Jesus is about to come. They got to get this built in 400 years. But they built the temple, and from now on, I'm going to call it Zerubbabel's temple. But when Jesus shows up, no one calls it Zerubbabel's temple. What do they call it? Okay, so I'm going to just ask people to guess. So, Gibson, what is the new temple called? Not Zerubbabel's temple, but it's called what? Solomon. Good guess. Solomon's temple was destroyed. Okay, and you want to guess, Andrea?
The Lord's temple.
Whose temple?
The Lord's.
The Lord's temple. Okay. Not quite. Brendan? So it has a new name, and you guys have heard it. King Herod's temple. Have you heard of that?
Oh.
So
I know
King
it's
Herod's temple and Zerubbabel's temple is the same thing. What's the difference? King Herod says, oh, now I have money. I can spend it and make it elaborate. And what they don't know is he's spending it, making it elaborate for when Jesus comes, okay? But King Herod thinks he's the king, but we know Jesus is the king. One last thing. Okay, so the Zerubbabel temple is actually the King Herod's temple when Jesus shows up. And even Jesus probably didn't say Zerubbabel's temple. He probably says King Herod's temple. But the next thing I want you to think about is, according to Haggai chapter 2, verse 2, he calls him governor, okay? And the first person who built it, his title was King Solomon. The question is Zerubbabel qualified? Okay, so I can just ask people in the audience whether they think Zerubbabel is qualified. Len, do you think Zerubbabel is qualified?
No.
He's only a governor. Okay, good. And Betty, do you think he's qualified?
No.
No, okay. So here's the deep thought. No one does this. Is Zerubbabel related to a king? If he is, therefore, he is qualified. So next time when we come here, I'm going to prove to you that Zerubbabel is related to a king, and therefore he can build the temple. By the way, is there a temple today, Angelina? No. Who destroyed it? The first one was destroyed by the Babylonians, and the second, and then it was destroyed again. Do you remember they crucified Jesus, and then God dispersed the Jews, and the temple was destroyed. Who dispersed the Jews? Yeah, the Romans. And who do you think destroyed the temple? The Romans. So the temple has to be rebuilt again. And it has to be done by a king, which is kind of interesting. I'll see who does that one. So let's bow for a word of prayer. Okay, dear God, we want to thank you. We're learning a lot about the Bible and also about the old prophets, about the building of the temple and the kings. We want to thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so someone can turn that, and then we'll bring this back up. I guess we never made it to the tune.
That's okay.
And you guys can watch the lack of progress there is out here. It looked like nothing got done.
A lot of noise.
Well, the good news is we can all leave southward
Yeah.
or northward by 18th Avenue.
All right. Trying to get more of it. Okay, so make it. Well, probably, yeah.